Testament, 1 Samuel chapter 9. How many of you know that sometimes it's simply, it's not what you think. It's not what you think. We have an idea of something, but sometimes it's not what you think. And while we are in 1 Samuel chapter 9 and 10, if you will hold that with your thumb and flip over really quickly to 2 Corinthians chapter 6. I want to open with a passage from the New Testament because I want us to really grasp and understand that it's sometimes not at all what you think. We have an idea in our minds and in our hearts and how we see things, and sometimes what we see is not even there. What we see in things, what we see in people, what we see in events. We allow people to put a spin on things. We allow the media to put a spin on things. And sometimes our minds even play tricks on us, and it puts a spin on things. And what we see is not even there. It's especially true in relationships as you're turning to 2 Corinthians chapter 6, verse 14. It's especially true in relationships, and that could be friendships, it could be romance, it could be business encounters, and sometimes we have a vision of someone as the sun is glistening off of their bodies, and they look so special, so nice. As you're sitting by candlelight and their little eyes are twinkling and and you're just like, oh, you just look so good. And for some reason, they just happen to be wearing that special perfume or cologne. And sometimes you're sitting at the table and you're sitting across from them and you're smelling that, and it's just, you smell so nice. Then you get home and you realize that was my cologne. I thought it was you, and I was smelling me. I was turning my own. See, sometimes it's just not what you think. It's just not what you think. Sometimes it's that sun just gets in your eyes and distorts that view, and you're like, yeah. Sometimes that person, they appear as something, and they're not even that. They roll up in that nice car with the sunlight, the little LED lights on, and you're like, oh, yeah, and they step out and their feet hit the ground and dust don't even pop up. He's like, oh, yeah, I got somebody now. It's not what you think. No, it's not what you think. So sometimes you might have that person that comes to you with an idea, and I have a proposal for you, and they paint a nice little picture, and it's like, yeah, we getting ready to get rich quick, but it's not what you think. It's not what you think. Sometimes somebody might even have an idea, a career path for you, and they say, if you just take this, major in this in college and get your degree in this and spend your 4 or 5 years studying this, and then you get your diploma and you go out into the workforce, and it's not what you think. It's not what you think at all. That even happens, and I know we're celebrating Veterans Day and everything, but a lot of times you go down to the recruiter, and I remember when I went to the recruiter, and the thing that he was like, you go down, you go to Virginia, and you look out in the parking lot, and all these little E1s and E2s driving these nice little cars, and you can have that too. And I joined, and it wasn't what I thought. No, they wasn't giving cars to E1s and E2s. You wasn't making enough money to get a car. It's not what you think. It's not always what you think. And God will tell us in the Word that sometimes the things that you're asking for are not at all what you really want. And it's certainly not what you need, but it's not even what you want. You think you want that, but then it's not what you think, because once you get it, you'll see what it really is, and it's like, oh my, how did I get here? How did I get yoked up with that? And you ask yourself, I didn't see it coming. And many times we don't see it coming because we're not looking at it. We're looking at what we want. We're looking at the fantasy. We're looking at our own vision of life and our own vision of things. If I could just get that house in that neighborhood, but it's just not what you think. You get that house, but you might have looked at the house, but you didn't look at the neighbors. You might have looked at the curb appeal and how somebody dressed up the house, but you didn't look at the basement. You didn't turn on the water. It's not what it looked good on the outside, but when you got on the inside, it just wasn't what you thought. But the Bible tells us there were signs that would have told you. Turn on the lights and see what they look like. And, when you go to the store and you see that item of clothing and you look at it and it's like, oh, that looks nice. And you take it to the dressing room and you put it on and there are little mirrors and it looks nice. And you get home and you don't have their lights. It don't look so nice. You got real lights and it shows all the stuff that other light and mirror wasn't showing. But something should have told you when you looked at the tag and it wasn't your size. It's not going to be what you think. It's not going to be what you think. So sometimes God gives us signs and he tells us beforehand, this is your size. But we don't like our size. We don't like our size. Women, you go to the store and you buy shoes and you want a size. I don't know what size y'all want, so I'm going to be careful. It got to be what size? You go there and you want a size 6 and maybe you wear a size 8 and you're going to make it work. But there was a sign and the sign said size 6. But you wear a size 8 and you're going to squeeze in there and the next thing you know you're going to a podiatrist and he's fixing that situation up. Because there were some signs that told you this is not your size. Guys do it too. You wear a size 9. I don't know why you in the 11 size. You're going to be flopping around and it's just not going to be good for you. You're trying to impress. It's not your size. Well, in 2 Corinthians chapter 6, verse 14, it says, do not be bound together with unbelievers because they're not your size. For what partnership has the righteous and the lawless? Or what fellowship has light with darkness? Or what harmony has Christ with Baal? Or what has a believer in common with an unbeliever? Because it's not your size. Or what agreement has the temple of God with idols? For we are the temple of the living God. Just as God said, I will dwell in them and walk amongst them. And I will be their God, and they shall be my people. Therefore, come out from their midst and be separate, says the Lord. And do not touch what is unclean. And I will welcome you, and I will be a father to you, and you shall be sons and daughters to me, says the Lord Almighty. We all want to be sons and daughters, but then we all want to hang out with people that's not our size. We all want to have this relationship with God. It's not about religion, it's about relationship. But then you're hanging out, you're relating with people that you shouldn't have a relationship with. They're not your size. See, they're not what you think. So you wanted them to be something. It happens so much, especially in the church with guys and girls. We do this evangelistic dating. You know what that is? That person, they ain't saved, but we're going to date them and make them saved. Well, if you can't witness to your neighbor, how are you going to witness? See, the thing is, they're going to draw you. We say we're going to draw them over to our side, but they have more people on their side. See, and it's not just in the dating scene, it's also in the business sector. It's in the jobs that we choose. It's in the majors that we choose in college. It's in the class choices. It's in the neighborhoods that we move into. It's in every facet. So we look at this passage of scripture and we relegate it to dating only. It's talking about relationships, period. Don't be yoked to unbelievers because it's not what you think. And I know they have good morals. I know they have good values. I know they do good things. They're altruistic. They give to the poor. They help out the needy. But I know they're better than even church folks sometimes. But it's not what you think. Because deep down inside, when the rubber meets the road, when the storms come and when the floods rise, then you see what it really is. When the sun is shining and a soft breeze is blowing, everybody can smile. Everybody can be pleasant and kind. Everybody can be pleased and thank you. But when life hurts, when you don't do what they want you to do, now you see it ain't what I thought. It's not what I thought. When you choose that major and you go into that occupation and you are going in there because it's going to pay a lot. And then you get there and you go down to HR and you start signing documents and you don't know what you're signing. And then all of a sudden you get that first check and you're like, so you make your little trip back down to HR. And you ask them, now, this is what they told me I was getting paid. And then they start showing you all those little documents you signed for insurance and this, that, and the other. And it's not what I thought. Yeah. I thought I was going to be making X amount of money because that's what they told me this occupation would pay. And it does. But when all of the taxes and all of the fees and all this stuff, it's not what I thought. Yeah. But you know what? You still have to work those hours. You still got to work those hours. Because before you thought, it's worth it because I'm getting paid this, but it's not what you like. See, God shows us signs, and God will say, I never told you to do that to begin with. While you're counting up vacation time because you don't want to work anymore, I never told you to do that. There's a job that I had for you that you wouldn't need a vacation for because going to work would have been a vacation for you. But you didn't want that. You wanted the one that was going to pay more. And he said, it's not what you think. Life is like that. There's that friend that you have that looks like they can offer you so much. Just hang with me. I can get you linked in. I can get you set up. And then all of a sudden, they want to control you because now it's not what you think. That's what Israel's dealing with in 1 Samuel. And that's why God tells us in 2 Corinthians, don't be yoked with unbelievers. Because God has said, I want to be your father. I want to be your friend. I want to be the one that you trust in. I want to be the one that cares for you. I want to be the one that fills your cup. Don't go to some other charlatan. Don't go to some other somebody out there that you feel like they're going to fill your cup. They can't do it. So many people get married because they just want somebody to love them. Yeah. And God is saying, I've been loving you all along. Because their love is not what you think. They can only love you so far. And God said, there's no end to my love, but you want my love to come to an end so you can love on them. He said, listen, I got a love that I can love you so much you have love running over. It's not what you think. There's a story that I heard, and Ravi Zacharias, he's a Christian apologist, and I listen to him often, and he told a story, and it was a cute little story, and it says, there's this guy, he was a bagpiper, and he was going to play this gig that a funeral director had asked him to come and do this graveside service for this homeless man. And this homeless man, he had no family, no friends or anything, so the graveside service was going to be at the Pauper Cemetery in the back country of Kentucky. And it said that this guy, this bagpiper, he was unfamiliar with the country, so he got lost as he was getting there. So he got there really late, and when he finally arrived, the funeral director wasn't there, and no one was there. The hearse was gone, and no one was on site. Only the grave diggers, the crew, they were the only ones that were there, and the site was there, and the grave was open. And he said he felt bad, and he apologized to the men, the grave diggers, for being late, and he went to the graveside and he looked over at the vault, and the vault lid was already closed and already in place, and he didn't know what else to do, so he just started playing. He just started playing, and he played, and it said the workers, they put down their lunch because they were sitting there on the side having lunch. They put down their lunch, and they all came around and they gathered around, and he said he played with all of his heart, with all of his soul for this homeless man who had no family and no friends, and he said he played like never before for this homeless man. And he said as he played Amazing Grace, the workers began to weep. He said they wept, and he wept, and they all wept together. And when he finished, he packed up his bagpipe and he started to his car, and he said, though my head hung low, my heart was full. And as he opened the door to the car, he overheard the worker say, I've never seen nothing like this before, and I've been putting in septic tanks for over 20 years. Sometimes it's just not what you think. It's not what you think. Sometimes we're so caught up in our stuff, so caught up in our mission, so caught up in our plans that we can't even see the obvious. He just memorialized a septic tank because it's not what you think. And sometimes the people we cry over, the people we mourn over, sometimes the people that we pander after and we chase, they're septic tanks. They're septic tanks. They're rotten. Or at least rotten for us. Or at least rotten for us. And that's kind of what we see in 1 Samuel chapter 9 and verse 10. Israel is pandering after a king, and they want a king. And God is saying, I'm your king. But no, we want a king like everybody else has a king. And he's like, no, it's going to be septic to you if you choose someone else to be a king. But they still want to be like everybody else. They're yoking themselves to all the other nations. And we want a delegate. We want a representative just like everybody else. We want somebody to go before us. We want somebody that's going to look good for us. Because God doesn't look good by himself. And all he has is this little prophet, this little judge, and that's not good enough. We want a king like everybody else. So what do? You pray and you seek God and you beg and you plead and you come together as a group and you say, God, this is what we want. And God says, that's not what you need, but this is what we want. And God says, all right, go ahead with your bad self. Sometimes God says, I can show you better than I can tell you. But you have to understand, God's yes is not always God's plan. God's yes is not always God's plan. Sometimes you get all out of sorts in yourself trying to do things your own way because you see how things ought to work out. You have your own plan and you're telling God how it should work. And God is saying that's not how it should work. And you get stiff-necked and rebellious and you're like, I'm not going to move with you, God, until you move for me. And God says, all right, yes, you can have it, but that's not my plan. That's not what's good for you. Because see, God, he will not force himself on you. He's not going to force himself on you. That's the beautiful thing about our relationship with God. It has to be volitional. It has to be voluntary. It has to be a choice, a willful choice. You have to decide to submit. God doesn't bend anybody. You must bend a bow before God. It's a choice. But sometimes we make a good plan God's plan, but you got to know a good plan is not necessarily God's plan. It may not be a bad thing. That may not be a bad career choice. That may not be a bad person. They may even be in the church. But they're not in the church like you're in the church. They're not going in the direction. You're in the church and you're both in the missions department. But your mission is local. Their mission is foreign. So they want to go overseas to mission. You want to stay in the neighborhood and do missions. So you're not going in the same direction. So if you stay here, one person's going to be mad. If you go overseas, the other person's going to be angry. So so that it sounded like a good plan, but it wasn't God's plan because you had stars in your eyes. So understand though, everybody that comes into the building isn't for God. They just know how to play the role. So what looks good in the dark reveals flaws in the light. What looks good in the dark reveals flaws in the light. So sometimes we ought to turn the light of God on somebody. We ought to look into the scripture and turn the light of God on and say, Lord, you shine on this person. You shine on this event. You shine on this job. You shine on this neighborhood. I can't see with my eyes. I might have a little cataract or I might have a little whatever. My vision might be blurred and I can't see what's going on. God, you shine the light of your glory. You shine the light of your holiness on this thing so I can see, is this for me? No. is this for you? Is this for you? Because see, the problem is I've been wondering if it's for me, and that's why I can't see clearly. I've been looking out for me instead of looking out for him. Because when I look out for him, he looks out for me. And he gives me not only what I need, but he gives me what I want. Because I know what I want, but I don't even know how to get it. And then I try to get what I want, and I end up in darkness when somebody else is walking in darkness. And because they had a little flashlight, I thought they had it going on. The little flashlight, what happens when the battery runs out? Because the battery's going to run out on the relationship. The battery's going to run out on the job. The battery's going to run out on the situation. It's going to run out. But you know, God, he's infinite, and his light is infinite. So we need his light to shine on the situation. You got Saul in this situation, and he comes from a great lineage. And I'm just going to sum this up, and you want to read this for yourself in chapters 9 and chapter 10. And Kish is his father, and Kish is he was an honorable man. He was a war hero, and he comes from a rather wealthy family. And his dad, Kish, sends Saul out to find some donkeys, and it's kind of ironic that he's looking for these donkeys, and Israel's looking for a king. And so he's looking for these donkeys, and he goes out looking for these donkeys, and he can't find them. Now, what you don't understand by the terminology that's here, because it doesn't really explain the geography unless you look at the map, these donkeys never got more than 5 miles from his house. But he couldn't find them. Searched all over and couldn't find these donkeys. And it got so late, and it had been so long, that he told his servant that had gone with him. That lets you know that he's rather wealthy because he has servants. So he comes from a rather well-to-do family. And he tells the servant, we need to go back because we've been looking for this donkey for a long time. And now Dad will stop worrying about the donkeys and he'll start worrying about me. So we need to go back. And the servant says, you know what? Well, we're in this area. There's a seer in this area. And seer, later on, they're called prophets. And there's a seer in this area. We can go to him, and he can tell us maybe where these donkeys are. And now, why doesn't Saul know that there's a prophet in the land that lives next door? But he doesn't know for some reason. But his servant knew. And he said, we can go to him. And he said, well, we can't go to him because we don't have anything to pay him. Now, I told you there were signs, right? That there's flags. See, the first flag is he can't find the donkeys. The second flag is he don't even know there's a prophet in the land. The third flag is he want to pay the prophet for his services. You'll catch some of this as I preach through this later. Saul's got some issues already going on in his heart. But see, this is the one that they're going to choose to be king. This one with these flaws. He's looking for donkeys. Israel's looking for a king. And the king that they're looking for is kind of like the donkeys, kind of this rebellious, stiff-necked type that kind of wants to stray and do his own thing. So there's that parallel that's going on there. And as they're searching, but the king they're looking for can't even find donkeys 5 miles from his place. The king that they're looking for can't even find the judge, the prophet in the land. He doesn't even know where the man of God is. This is the king that they're looking for. They can't even hear from God. This is the king that they're looking for. But they're not looking for a man that can actually accomplish anything. They're not looking for a man with godly character. They're looking for a man that's head and shoulders above the rest. Because that's what he was. He was a nice-looking gentleman. He was head and shoulders above the rest, and he comes from a strong line. But he calls himself, he says, as the prophet comes to him to tell him, you are going to be king, he's like, how can I be king? I'm from Benjamin. I'm from a wayward tribe that didn't want to do right. I'm from a family, he calls his family the least in the tribe, but it wasn't because, they had servants. And he says, I can't do that. I can't be that. But he goes on, and when he finds Samuel tells him, the donkeys are all taken care of. Don't worry about it. You just come with me because I'm going up to the sacrifice, and you sit with me. And he anoints him as king. And he tells him what God is going to do. And then it comes time for the coronation. And they call him out, and they can't find him. He's hiding under a table. Now, that wouldn't be a sign. That would be a flag, a sign, a parade, a big booming voice. It's oh no. How are we going to have a king that at his coronation, he's hiding under the table? That puts I don't want the job into a whole nother category. hiding under a table. But sometimes we get so caught up in what we want, we get so caught up in the image we have before us, we get so caught up in my perception of you, my first impression of you, that I'll excuse any crazy thing that you do. And so my king is hiding under a table, doesn't know where the man of God is, can't find donkeys. But I still want you to be king. You have that person in your life. They hadn't treated you right when they met you. They hadn't treated you right the next day. They ain't treating you right now, but you still want to be friends. They've been lying to you since the day you heard about them, but you still want to be friends. The last person that left the job left because they wouldn't get paid, but you thought you were going to go there and get paid? There were signs all along the way that it's not what you think. You want it to be something that it's not. You see, the problem is not the yoke. It's who you're yoked to. The problem is not the yoke. It's who you're yoked to. And so many of us are yoked to people that are not going in the same direction, and we're saying this yoke is uncomfortable. This yoke don't fit. I don't like I don't want to be yoked anyhow. Because you're yoked to the wrong person. You're not going in the same direction. They're pulling right and you're pulling left, and you're wondering what's going on. You see, it's not just where you come from, it's where you're going. Oh, I know your folk. Yeah, well, our folk grew up in the same area. I know your peoples. But where are you going? Just because we have some things in common doesn't mean we're going in the same direction. If we head out of here, Meridian, and we head west on the 20, you might be going to Laurel, I might be going to Vicksburg. But because we head out in the same direction, we think it's going to be all right until we get to that little split. Now we got a problem. Now all of a sudden the yoke don't fit. The problem ain't the yoke, it's who you're yoked to. It's not what you think. We're really not going in the same direction. And you got to ask yourself, when you look at people, when you look at a situation, if they can't manage their own life, why are you going to give them yours? Why are you going to give them yours? If the king if he can't find donkeys, how is he going to succeed in battle? If he doesn't know where the man of God is, how is he going to seek him for direction for the nation? If he can't manage his own life, how is he going to manage yours? Why are you going to vote for... I'm not going to go into politics. See, some people are chosen by men and simply called by God. You see, there are many called, but few are chosen by God. See, we want them, and God just said yes because we wanted them. Because we simply were not going to do right. We're like little children that are spoiled and bratty, and we were just not going to get up off the floor until you got that little now later. You just weren't going to do it. You just, I'll beat you and you'll cry more, and then I just don't have time in Walmart for this, and just here, just take this before I end up in jail. Yeah, just take it. And when I get home, we're going to deal with this. And that's kind of what God is saying. Just take it right now, and when we get home, we're going to deal with this. And when Saul becomes your king, we're going to deal with this. You're going to see that what you thought you had is not at all what it is. Because what we need to do is judge a book by its content, not its cover, by its content. So many people choose preachers because they drive up and they get out of a nice car, they have on a nice suit, and they get up here and they can tune up. You should have been a worship leader, not a pastor, because you ain't got nothing to say, bro. You've been saying the same thing for the last 20 years. You got nothing. You got nothing else in your bag. You know, I asked you what the scriptures say, and you tell me what you think. I ain't asked you what you think. I asked what God thought. If you can't tell me what God thinks, then don't stand up here before you. So many people, I like the person that stands head and shoulders above the rest. I like the person that is dapper and got some swag. Swag ain't all that good. But we're impressed by people. And there's even statistics that show when it comes to voting for governmental officials, we vote for the person that looks nice. We vote for the person that looks nice. Now, how we got the current, but we vote for the person that normally we vote for. I mean, there's always that one. So instead of looking at the content, instead of looking at who they really are, instead of looking at what they really value, instead of looking at all the signs, we look at the figure. You see, if the measuring stick is off, the measurements will be wrong. If the measuring sticks are off, the measurement will be wrong. And so many of us create our own measuring stick. Instead of going to God's measuring stick, we create our own measuring stick. And I don't know, I can't eye an inch or a foot or a yard. I need God's, I need the measure, I need the ruler, I need the yardstick. I need God's, I can't choose for myself what's good and what's evil. That's what got us into this problem to begin with. I've been deciding for myself who is good in my life and who is bad in my life. I've been deciding for myself what feels good and what doesn't. God never asked us how we felt. He asked us to be faithful to his word. Because we should judge by God's plan, not our own passions. We judge by God's plan. Because sometimes it doesn't feel good to walk into a sea. Moses, say what? Just to walk. Joshua, just put your foot in, do what? That doesn't feel good. Walk around the wall of Jericho for 7 days. I told y'all before, and I'll tell you again, those Hebrews, they weren't black folk. After the first day, we wouldn't have made it the first day because he said walk around and don't say nothing. How you going to get a bunch of black folk walking together and not say anything? We're not going to walk together quiet. And if the wall is too far to walk around, a fight can break. We're not going to pay attention to the rules. But sometimes it don't feel good. Sometimes it doesn't make logical sense. But God said, do it anyways. Do it anyways. Just trust me. Because I remember a time when they were following a leader, and that leader got nailed to a cross, and they all went and hid saying, what are we going to do now? Because this doesn't look good. This is not the plan that we had. Jesus, you were supposed to take over. You were supposed to run things, and you went and died on us. This don't look right. That's not part of our plan. But he said, that was my plan all along, because you need more than a social redeemer. You need a savior of your soul. And if you just trust in what I can do and stop trusting in what you think you're doing, because really what you're doing, it ain't what it looks like. You think you're good. You think that you've done something, but your good works are just not what they look like because you're doing good because it's convenient for you. I want you to do good when it's a hurt to you. I want you to do good when it doesn't feel good, when they don't say thank you, when they don't mention your name, when they don't give you compensation, when they don't invite you back. Still give it your all. Matter of fact, he said, when they hate you, love them back. When they spitefully, I can handle you hate me, but just don't put your mouth on me. But he said, when they hate you and they put their mouth on you, when they hate you and they talk bad about you, still love them. Still compliment them. It don't feel good, but it is good. They asked for a king because it felt good to look like all the other nations. They asked for a king because they wanted a representative. But that was their choice. It wasn't God's plan. He wasn't God's man. We're going to see later on when God chooses, and the person that God chooses doesn't look like the person that they're looking for. The prophet doesn't even get it. He doesn't even recognize it. because they want somebody that's head and shoulders above the rest. They want somebody that's going to look good in the delegation. They want somebody that's smooth talking, that comes from a good family. They want somebody impressive. But God is looking at the heart. There was a story of a young man. He went to war, and he fought alongside this other young man that was like his best friend. And they fought hard together. And this one young man, he had this little gift, a little talent, a little hobby. He would draw, he would sketch. He was a sketching artist kind of a guy. And one day he was just sitting there with his friend. He just said, "Be still, just let me do this for you." And he kind of sketched him out a little bit. He kind of did a portrait of him, a little, just a little pencil deal of the son. And he rolled it up and he gave it to him. And they were in battle, and his friend lost his life. He died in battle. And as he died in battle, the father grieved tremendously over the loss of his son. Never got over it. It was his only child. And the father was a wealthy man. And when the other young man, the friend, came back from the war, he had the belongings of his friend. And he found the father, and he took the belongings to the father, and he said, "Sir, I don't know if this means anything to you, but..." And I'm sure you have other pictures of your son, but here's something that I drew just before we went into that battle, and it's a likeness of your son. And he gave it to the father, and the father just wept, and he took it and hugged the man, and the young man went on his way. Years later, the father dies. And he has this huge estate. And they call certain people in for the reading of the will. And for whatever reason, that young man was called. And as the father was going to give out all of his inheritance. And so the lawyer gets up and he reads the will, and he says, "Now we're going to begin." And he says, "Before we begin, we're going to start with one item." And this is at the father's request. And he brought out this frame, this really nice, expensive frame. And in the frame, he had that little sketched image, likeness of his son. And he held it up. He said, "Well, we're going to start with this." And he said, "Is there anybody that would like to have this?" And the people all looked, and they looked around. It was quiet. Nobody said anything. And so the lawyer, he took time, and he said, he just left it. "Is there anybody that would like this?" And everybody's just looking around to see, and nobody says anything. And finally, a guy stands up, and he says, "Sir, just get on with it. Nobody wants that little ugly picture. Just get on with it. Tell us what the inheritance is. Tell us who's getting what. We don't have time for that garbage." Well, the friend that drew the picture happened to be there. And with his head hung low, he stood up with a tear in his eye. He said, "I'll take it. I'll take it." And he goes up and he takes it. And he sits down. And the lawyer puts the gavel down. He says, "It's over. It's over. You all can go now." Like, wait a minute. What about the inheritance? We're here for the reading of the will. What about the inheritance? He said, "Well, there's only one line here," and it said, "Whoever took the son gets everything." Whoever took the son gets everything. See, it's not what you think. It's not what you think. See, when you look at him with our eyes, he doesn't look so attractive. Yeah. When we look at him on the cross, he kind of looks defeated. But then when you look, not with the eyes of flesh, but the eyes of your spirit, you see a risen king with all power in his hands. You see a redeemer, not just a God,
but a friend. Not just a friend, but a father that gives his life that you might have life. And there might be somebody here today that wants to find new life in Christ. And you've been looking at life as it is, and I'm telling you, it's not what it looks like. And you've been looking at God the way you see him, and I'm telling you, he's not what it looks like. He's more magnificent than this. He's more glorious than this. He's more awesome than this. He's more than what he looks like. Choose life today. Give up your life. It's not what it looks like. Choose his life. It's more than it looks like. The altar is open to anyone who desires prayer.